It is 6 o'clock, and I will call the February 25th, 2025 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. We do have a quorum with all members present. Tonight we have Pastor Tammy Porter from Life Changers Christian Church to provide the invocation. If you would, please rise and remain standing for the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we are thankful for this opportunity to come together tonight. We thank you for the county that we live in, and we honor those who serve on our behalf. We ask that you go before us tonight and lead the way for this meeting. May there be clear heads and sound minds that govern, and may all decisions be made for our good and for your glory. In the name of Jesus, we ask all these things. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, I will make one adjustment to the agenda. We've got Randy Hales here tonight that I spoke to present about his program, Sleep in Heavenly Peace. So I will add that under new business. And moving on the agenda, our first item is a public hearing for the Grandview Drive Transportation District. And Mr. Bear, since I sound like Barry White, I'll ask you to read the public notice.
The Wythe County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as practical in the Board of Supervisors Meeting Room, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, 24382. The public hearing is open to comment on an ordinance establishing the Grandview Transportation Service District in the Lead Mines District. The Service District will provide for street improvements to serve landowners pursuant to 15.2-2400 of the Code of Virginia. A copy of the proposed ordinance and district is available in the County Administration Office for review. The public may comment in person at the public hearing or submit written responses to County Clerk Martha Collins at the address above or at email at mgcollins@wytheco.org by order of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bear. Got a few people signed up. I'll call you up since it is a public hearing. You will have 5 minutes to speak, and Mr. Cook will keep the time. The first person we have signed up is Mr. Jay Grubb.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm for this. We have handicapped children on this road that require transportation, and a school bus runs up and down through there, a handicapped bus. There's 3 of us that work on this road constantly to try to keep it smooth, and it's becoming a fight. Wire and tear on the tractors, we're spending thousands of dollars a year for diesel fuel maintenance on these tractors. Also, we don't have to worry about our kids getting on the bus at the bottom of the hill. The bus can go drop them off at the houses. They can move our mail boxes to our house, so that the mail boxes are not getting raided down at the bottom of the hill. I think it'll be a good thing for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grubb. Next person we have signed up is Mr. Dallas Beasley.
Hello, gentlemen and ladies. I'm Dallas. I live on Grandview. I'm for the road in particular and every statement that he said. However, as some of y'all may know, I'm also on Bentwood. That was against my will and the prior knowledge, and I guess I don't know how to speak, I'm sorry. I'm being taxed for that, and as long as this, I'll be getting taxed again. We had the meeting September 12th. I talked to Lisa, and we had talked here. I was told September 12th that I would do it up off Grandview. 4 days ago. 4 days later, September 16th, she reiterated the fact, hey, we're gonna make sure you're not on Grandview, they had agreed to terms. I have some emails if I would like to see. And, didn't email her back and forth until November 12th. That was shortly after I was talked to by some gentlemen about having to sign for the road that I was supposed to be left off on. Like I said, I agree that they need a road. They work hard on that road. I can attest to that. However, I had already started making arrangements to put a driveway in and get my address changed over to Bentwood, because that was the plan. And I was gonna put a fence in the back. And I would not be using Grandview, and that's still the plan today if I am able to not be allowed on. I'm new to this, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
It does come to my attention that I was probably rude. Actually, I was definitely rude at some sort of time on the phone with Miss Lisa Shelton. And I do apologize for that, but it was out of anger. Of dealing with this from the time I was put on Bentwood without my acknowledgement till this time now. I'm tired of fighting it. I just want to deal with it. It's stress. I'm 26. And I don't need that. I don't need this. But they do need a road. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Next person we have signed up is Mr. Billy McFarland.
Ladies and gentlemen, listening to us, I'm all for the road on Grandview. And I mean, I hate the situation that Dallas is in. But, you know, he lives on Grandview, and I hate that he's having to go through what he's going through, but, you know, I'm with him. You know, he wasn't the one that even signed up for Bentwood. But, you know, he lives on Grandview, and I think that he would be on with us because that's where his house is, and he's right on the side of the road with everybody else. And I mean, we spend a lot of time on that road, and we are fighting a losing battle. And I just think that that's something that we need, and I think he ought to be part of it with us. And, you know, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next person we have signed up is Dave Meredith.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say I've lived on Grandview since 2001, and that has been a nightmare since then. We have tried to have a homeowners association that would pay to do the road, and it was a nightmare trying to get people to pay. That never worked. So we started using our own tractors, doing what we could. Everybody would donate a little bit to buy gravel, but gravel has went through the roof. I just bought some from the driveway, $700 a load. So the opportunity to get our road paved is outstanding, and I thank y'all for giving us this opportunity. It's going to be, I just hope it goes through and we get it done. And, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have signed up to speak for the public hearing. Mr. Baird, I know we discussed this earlier, and my only concern is I feel for Mr. Beasley. I know that I've sat on this board for going on 8 years, and very shortly after I got elected, Mr. Meredith asked me what he could do to get Grandview hardtop. So, I mean, I've been on that road. They've spent a lot of money trying to maintain it, and we've got an opportunity to turn it over to the state and, let them fix it. Financially, what's it look like, or what do the numbers look like if we exclude Mr. Beasley from this transportation district and the county pick that piece up?
And the county picked that piece up. Um, the way that when I say they, the residents of Grandview petitioned you all to establish this public hearing, and they decided which lots would be included within this public hearing. And I did speak with them about it, and they recommended including Mr. Beasley's lot in the process. Mr. Beasley had come to the meeting that we had here and talked about why he did not want to be involved with it, but for the reason I believe one of the gentlemen just said, that was the main access in and out of that property. That's why they included it in the district. The annual tax amount is $1,301.85 per landowner in that service district. So each landowner has to pay that annually in taxes. So if the board were to say they were going to pay that petition, that part, then you would be paying $1,302 a year for 7 years for that one lot.
Have we ever had anything like that happen before? I know these situations are always a little.
No, we've had people that have been opposed, obviously, to the Transportation Service District, but we have not had an individual that name was on the petition to create the Bentwood District. And then when Grandview came in, Second Road came in, that his property was on it also.
So I'm assuming that Bentwood is about the same dollar amount?
I think Bentwood's about $800. Martha might be finding it quicker than I am, but I'm. I believe we adopted that in 22. Does that sound correct? Bentwood Transportation District, $767.98, so $768 on the Bentwood.
And was that for 7 years as well?
Yeah, that is for 10 years. And let me double check, 'cause I said 7 on the other one. Yeah, 7 years on the Bentwood.
And that was in 22?
I'm sorry, said 10 years on Bentwood, 7 years on the Grandview. It was adopted in 23.
If Mr. Beasley was to fence off what's the front side of his property now, make that the back and the driveway go out the other way.
He does not own property adjoining Bentwood. He crosses, if you'll look at on page 7 of the board package. Mr. Beasley owns 343, correct, Mr. Beasley?
Yes, my mom is the opposite land from me.
The
So-
489.
So that generates another question. If his property doesn't touch Bentwood, why is he paying taxes for that?
Because, and if you don't mind letting him answer, it's my understanding, and I do not know if it was your mother or who it was, in order to get enough support for Bentwood, Mr. Beasley signed his name to the petition to Bentwood. And the residents, remember, the residents are the one that decide which parcels are going to be included here. And my understanding is he was going to, he signed the petition and then he was going to cross his mother's property to get to Bentwood and was willing to pay the tax at that time to help them get that to be a state maintained road.
They came to agreement that, yeah, I was gonna sign the petition. I never had the petition directly in front of me. She signed on my behalf, and, well, we never heard anything. So I was like, well, if you haven't turned the petition back in, just don't worry about it, right? And then my taxes got raised, and my mortgage actually got raised because of that taxes on my escrow. And that will be the same thing that has to zero Grandview and make my house payment fixed for me.
So we had public hearings for this, right? We had meetings with the residents on Bentwood.
Yes.
Mr. Beasley, you wasn't a part of those meetings?
I did not know anything about those meetings, because at the time, me and my mother were not talking.
How long do we have to make a decision on this? Is it urgent?
You could not vote on this tonight and look at it at the next meeting. I would, let Scott provide his input here. The residents have created this district and petitioned for this district. I'll let Scott decide if you all could take lots off this district. The problem is if you take lots off this district, then you got to split that $1,301 between the rest of the landowners in the process. The correct action may be, if you decide to do it, would be to direct to vote against this petition. Say you're not approving it as is, and the residents would have to come back and re-petition the board with a different map that could exclude Mr. Beasley's property if that's what you all wanted to have excluded. Well, we did talk, I think they talked a little bit to some of the Bentwood residents to see if there was any. The Bentwood residents could petition the board to drop Mr. Beasley off as well, but they would have to split the cost of his $767 between them for that district for the rest of the time frame. And I think that's what makes this difficult. Is this is citizen driven. They decide what to be in the property or what to be in the district, the number of lots to be in there.
And I don't think nobody up here is saying that the road's not needed. I mean, it's desperately needed.
Absolutely.
But this is, I hate to see somebody get taxed twice.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, Mr. Smith.
Taxes is
I want the road to be done, but I can't justify taxing somebody twice.
That's why I asked if it was an urgent matter, because it just seems like something we don't need to rush to make a decision on tonight. And, I mean, it's not my area. I don't know as much about it maybe as Mr. Smith, but it's very difficult. Oh, I'm sorry. Those areas confuse me. But, I don't know, it's sticky.
I mean, what other options is out there
Yeah.
that we haven't talked about?
Is there any other options?
Well, I think the land to the next meeting, and Scott could see if there's any other options in the process. The tax rate we established is based off estimates, and so obviously the actual cost from VDOT will be decided after they construct the road. Most of the time they come in at or under budget, and then we end up making a change to, because we only collect what it takes for us that we recoup for what we put forward on over that 7 years. Could let Scott look at it and see if there's other options other than rejecting it and letting them repetition us in the process.
Definitely not on me. That's, yeah, I mean, you know, I wanna get the road done. My only issue is, you know, like it's already been said, you know, you're getting taxed on the back end and the front end. I don't think that's fair, but at the same time, it's, you know, it's gonna improve your property values. I get that. It, you know, looking at the map, I would rather keep that parcel on the Grandview Drive where there is access and do something with the Bentwood Drive, district. Where there's not really, I mean, land really doesn't meet that.
Do we need to look at, in the future, having some kind of, I don't know, ordinance or something to prevent this from happening again? To make sure that,
Really can't do an ordinance, but I mean, basically, I mean, we met with all the I mean, Ms. Shelton and the staff met with all the residents on Bentwood when they were forming their district. And you know, I understand what Mr. Beasley is saying. But Mr. Beasley signed the petition according to the records we received, and there was a witness that said he signed the petition to be on Bentwood. So, he requested to be on Bentwood. He requested to not be on Grandview. The residents of Grandview felt like he should be on there because that's where his road's going to be. So this is an option we give to the citizens to petition us to create this tax district. And so it's, you know, it is unfortunate. And I certainly understand because that's $2,000 to pay on both the roads. But I don't know that the county has any avenue to force the other residents of Bentwood to absorb his portion. Nor do I know that you have the ability to make everybody else on Grandview absorb his part, without them petitioning you all to say, this is the district we're creating. I hate it, but that's where I think we
who
are.
owns the property he has to go through to get to Brentwood?
He says technically his mother, but technically it's still in Dixon Lumber Company's name. I would assume it's one of those rent to own type deals or lease to own. But Dixon Lumber Company owns the property.
So I'm assuming the other two lots, 379 and 458, there's just enough property between on the
Yes.
backside of theirs to keep them out of that?
Yes.
So if we was to approve this tonight, could we go to reach out to Bentwood and see if there's something that you can do there?
Could. It's my understanding that they have had some discussions with them about potential changes to Bentwood, but I do not know how in-depth those conversations have been.
I mean, I don't know the residents on Bentwood, but most people aren't going to be willing to change to up their costs, I would think. I'm afraid if we approve this tonight, he's going to end up paying both.
I'll agree.
Do you want to hold this until the next meeting and let Mr. Farthing look at a couple options to come back to
Yeah, I
you
mean,
all?
I think it's not like they're gonna start doing it next week anyway. So, I mean, I'd rather sit back and look at their options and try to get some type of resolution and just to jump on it. I mean, there's no doubt that if it wasn't for this situation, we'd already be done with this discussion halfway down the agenda. But, yeah, I mean, that's, I think we let Mr. Farthing look at different options and we'll look at it next meeting.
Yeah, I'll agree.
That sound right? Excuse me. All right, we'll move on with the agenda. The next item is citizens' time. Didn't have any citizens signed up to speak for regular citizens' time. So we'll move on to the payment of invoices. Each board member has received in their board package a copy of the invoices that need to be paid. I'll entertain a motion to pay those invoices.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or any invoice that any board member wants to pull out? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item is the minutes from our previous meeting from February the 12th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Burnett. Do I have a second? Have a second by Mr. Morgan. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if don't mind, we can let the citizens know they're welcome to stay as long
Yeah.
as they want. But there will not be any action on Bent or Grandview until the next meeting.
You're welcome to stay, or if you want to stay for the excitement, or if you want to leave, we completely understand. Next item on the agenda is the audit presentation from Mr. Corbin Stone.
Chairman, board members, thanks for having me.
They heard your name, Corbin. They all got up and left.
My wife is the same.
About time you got here.
What's that?
About time you got here. It's only been a month.
I know, it has been a lot of months. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it earlier. Between the weather and the flu, haven't been able to get out. The audit went well. We did have some findings. You did receive an unqualified opinion, which means we believe the financial statements are materially correct. We received a clean opinion and we felt correct. The audit itself is about 141, the actual document is about 141 pages. We did have some findings in the back of the report. Number one, we recommended some journal entries. And one of them we kind of pointed out more so, it's actually in the back of the actual audit report, which is the 141 page document, not the handout we have tonight. One of them is that we recommended journal entries, and one of those in particular is we recommended journal entries to cash. The treasurer was having a difficult time reconciling the bank account to the books, so we had to make a recommended journal entry there. And normally we like to see that balance to the penny. So I know she's working on trying to figure out what those variances are, and going forward, we're going to let you know if she can configure that balance. But overall, you did receive unqualified opinion in the financial statements. First page of the handout, the select financial information, looking back to 2015, 2024, you all should have a handout in front of you. You can see, and I highlighted there, unrestricted funds, and you can see you ended the year with unrestricted or undesignated and unassigned unrestricted funds of approximately $50 million. And if you just look at that as raw data, and you say, well, in 2020 we had 38 million, today we have 50 million, we've done pretty well. You have, it's grown quite a bit. But during that same period of time, inflation was about 20%. So that 4-year period, those dollars you have today are worth about 20% less than the ones you had back in 2020. So that unassigned and unrestricted fund balance has grown by about 30%. But 20% of it is really inflation. And largely due to ARPA funds and federal stimulus money that you received that otherwise you wouldn't have received. But it's healthy, and you're in a good spot. As we'll talk a little bit later, the writing's kind of on the wall as to what's going to happen in terms of federal aid and possible. Long-term obligations, that first green line on page 1, stood at $56 million. For the general fund, if you will, we call them governmental activities. Long-term obligations for enterprise funds at $26 million. For the school board, $34 million. Total long-term obligations, $118 million for the county. So that's long-term debt. That's pension obligations that you have, if your pensions are underfunded. On a per capita basis, that's about $4,227. I would say for a county, kind of a rural county, not up in Northern Virginia, that's a reasonable level to have. The state average is about $6,000, at least it was last year. So you're below those state averages, but just keep in mind, those places up in Northern Virginia carry a lot more debt per capita than we do in Southwest Virginia.
when we talk about fund balance, that's really almost cash basis account. So when I say you've got 50 million in unrestricted funds, that's by and large cash available. The next page, we just kind of graph some of this information out on page 2, showing you your unrestricted funds is the blue line and your long-term obligations just for the general fund and government funds. The closer those are together, the better. And you can see they're pretty close together in 2024. You just have to remember that those long-term obligations, by and large, were taken out some time ago prior to inflation. So you're fortunate in that you get to pay back an obligation from years ago with dollars that have been effectively devalued a little bit or reduced in value. But again, that's a good looking graph. Water and sewer net position, the next page, page 3. That's doing a great job of keeping up with them. The net position for the water and sewer fund, that's taking the total assets of the system. Okay, so that's all the lines in the ground, that's all the assets of the system minus all the liabilities. And you can see we kind of dropped down in 2021, 22, and then we've gone back up in 23 and 24 to a pretty healthy level, between 32 and 33 million. Can't necessarily sell those lines in the ground. You might be able to find a buyer for them, but it's pretty tough. So just keep that in mind. So that's total net position, and really what we think the value of the whole system is.
Mr. Stone, the temporary financing, interim financing that we borrowed also had an impact on that number, correct?
Yes. The next page, I just look at your major revenue sources for the general fund. And you can see general property taxes right at the top. They're carrying the lion's share of the load for the county. Other local taxes have kind of bumped up during really post-COVID. Since a lot of those, and the meals tax, things like that, are based on what the consumer's being charged as kind of an add-on tax as a percentage, you can understand why that's increased. Same with sales tax. That next line down is federal aid, and you can see federal aid jumped up in 21. It's come back down a little bit, but it's still elevated compared to where it was in 2018, 19, 20. What we saw after the Great Recession was federal aid really shot up, and then it dropped back down, and it really dropped down, particularly at school boards, and we'll see that graph in a second. We expect that federal aid to actually drop back down over the next several years. The line at the very bottom, interest income. We're finally getting a little bit of interest income. You can see 23 and 24, a fairly significant amount of interest income between, I think, $2 and $3 million. The next page, your original tax assessments by year. I gave a presentation last night, and this is a true story. I bought a car for my son six years ago. We drove it for 6 years, put 30,000 miles on it, and we sold it for more than we paid for it. So you can see that red line, personal property, has really taken off in the past few years. Used car values, new car values have really gone up. We're starting to see a turn, and I'm starting to see dealers offer more incentives. Our car manufacturers offer more incentives, so I think that personal property assessed value is going to come down. Remember, real estate is 1/10. Otherwise, we have a lot of lines at the bottom and one line at the top, so we take 1/10 of the assessed value. The one line up there by personal property is Public Service Corporation tax. Those assessments are done by the state. I really can't explain why it jumped in 23 and then dropped back down in 24. That's kind of unusual. That almost looks like one of your, AEP or somebody like that, or a railroad misreported their assets in 23, because it looks more in line with 24. But those are handled by the state. There's no local input. Machinery and tools tax actually went up, or assessments actually went up between 23 and 22. So the assessments look pretty good. The next page, page 6. This is where you can really see the impact of state aid and federal aid. That top line from the school board, this is the school's operating fund. Aid from the Commonwealth has really jumped up in the past couple of years. And then the third line down, aid from the federal government, has also really jumped up in the last couple of years. I would expect that best case scenario to withdraw. I don't see, particularly federal aid, I'd actually see that going the other direction. And you can kind of see back in 2009, 2010, how we had a spike in federal aid after the Great Recession, and then it dropped back down to levels lower than it was prior to the Great Recession. You can see the spike we've got in 22, 23, and 24 is actually quite a bit larger than what we saw post-Great Recession. So they really got a lot of money. And that's really allowed the county not to have to transfer as much to the school boards as you otherwise would. But we do expect that to go away. And when we look back at that undesignated fund balance that we talked about, it's definitely a healthy balance. But we do expect federal and state aid to be impacted over the next several years. And we may have to dig into that a little bit. Page 7 and page 8, we have to look at your retirement system contributions every year to make sure you don't have anybody in there that shouldn't be in there, and to make sure as new employees come on that they are added to the retirement system. We didn't have any issues with the county or the school board. I've had some issues in some other places that people weren't being taken out. So we're still making contributions for employees that are left informed. We didn't see that at the county or the school board here, I'm pleased to say. That being said, we just do it on a test basis. We don't look at every new employee or every terminated employee. We take a random sample and make sure they were either added to the system or taken out. But we didn't have any issues there. Pages 9 and 10, in addition to the notes in the back of the actual audit report, we have a couple recommendations. Probably the biggest one on page 10, the reconciliation of the water and sewer bills. What we try to do is we take your billing for water and sewer and we compare that back to your collections. We were showing you actually collected more. When we did that reconciliation, we were coming up with collections. The collections in the book were actually higher than what we expected. That's a good variance. But we want you guys to start doing that reconciliation. And that variance could be related to the treasurer having difficulty reconciling the bank account at the end of the year too. So at any rate, we want those reconciliations to take place. That's one of the areas where there typically is a lot of cash collections, and whenever you have cash collections, they're at risk. Finally, on page 11, and the other thing I'll mention, we did notice that the school board wrote some checks at the end of the year, and didn't mail those checks to the vendors until November. I'm sure they were waiting for something to be completed. But we don't like that. We like you to write a check once the goods or services have been delivered. So we caution them about writing checks until the payment's actually due. Pages 11 and really the rest of the handout is a letter to those charged with governance. If you came in and Stephen or Kelly or the treasurer or anybody in social services or the school board didn't give us what we asked for, we would report it to you here. We didn't have any issues. You get the boilerplate letter. We do talk about some of the key estimates in the financial statements. I talked about those long-term liabilities, including that or your pension liabilities. We really don't know once somebody retires how long they're going to be in the pension system. So that liability is the present value of the expected time they're going to be in there. They may be in the pension system for 20 years, they may live for those 20 years, or they may only make it 10 or they may make it 30. So those estimates are really kind of critical to the financial statement. Overall, the audit went well. That's not to say, like I mentioned about the findings in the back of the report, there's not room for improvement. But we're pretty pleased, and we're really pleased with the numbers. We think you're in a good financial position. No matter what happens over the next couple of years, you're not going to have to have a knee-jerk reaction to it, have to go out and immediately raise taxes or immediately take on something. You're going to have time to evaluate it and make a decision. I'll stop there and try to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stone? My annual 2 questions. Anybody steal money, and are we financially healthy?
We didn't see anybody stealing. We can never say absolutely. We do our best to try to find that thing, but we can never with 100% say. And you're in good financial shape. Like I said, you're where I would want to be if I were in your shoes. So the board, the county, the school board, everybody's done a good job of maintaining funds. And I had to give a presentation last night that wasn't this nice. That had to tell somebody that had to really go out and raise taxes significantly. very quick. So, we're in a good position. What we'd like to see is that.
I often think of Mr. Stone's comment to me many years ago. He may not remember this, but this was probably 20 years ago or something, and I said something about not having theft, and he said theft happens every day, and even here. And I said something to him, and he said, "You never went home with a county pen in your pocket?" And I really think about that all the time. I mean, it's little bitty things like that in the process, but.
I think I've got a county pen in my pocket.
We'll have you pat it down for you. Was anybody else have anything for Mr. Stone?
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
sir.
sir.
It's my pleasure. If you come up with a question later on, if there's something you think I can help you with, my contact information is on that front side, so just let me know.
Thank you. Excuse me. All right, we'll move on to old business. Mr. Barrett, do you have anything for old business?
No, sir, I do not.
All right. Moving on to old business, we got Mr. Randy Hales from Sleep in Heavenly Peace. That's gonna make a presentation about their program. Come on up, Randy. Can you give me water?
I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen on the board for seeing me this evening. My name is Randy Hales. I am the local chapter president of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. We are a 501c3 that builds twin-size beds for kids between the ages of 3 and 17 that do not have a bed. Our coverage area currently is Wythe and Bland County, and we are planning to expand into Smith, Grayson, and Carroll counties in the city of Gay Lakes. Basically, that's the same coverage area as the Carroll Board. Wythe and Bland County, in the last 5 months, we've delivered 29 beds. That's 29 kids that were sleeping in unfavorable conditions that don't have to do that anymore. We have a build plan the 29th of March in Rural Retreat, across the street from Parkway Marathon. We're gonna build 40 beds. We can do that in about 4 hours with 80 to 100 unskilled volunteers and the tools that we have accumulated in our startup process. Roanoke County in 6 years has delivered just short of 2,000 beds. New River Valley chapter, which is Montgomery County, Pulaski County, and the city of Radford, has delivered just short of 1,200 beds. Since they started keeping track, Sleep in Heavenly Peace since 2018 has delivered over 263,000 beds in the United States. There are over 400 chapters building beds across the country, and a couple other countries, there's 2 or 3 in Canada. Our administrative fee for Sleep in Heavenly Peace is about 10%. So 90 cents out of every dollar donated to our program goes in the kid's bed. A typical bed runs between $250 and $300 per bed. So the build that we're doing in Rural Retreat takes about $10,000. $1,000 for administrative fee, $9,000 for lumber, mattresses. When we deliver a bed, we assemble it, it's all set up and ready to sleep in when the kid gets there. We have been delivering during the week when kids are in school, just because that's what's worked for the delivery team. It's all volunteer, everybody that works on Sleep in Heavenly Peace. There's some administrative people at the top. And I've been told, we haven't been doing this long enough, but I've been told that the chapter gets back between 4 and 5% of that administrative fee and services rendered to us. They handle the liability insurance, the 501c3 paperwork, and they do grant writing for us for the big grants. I'll let you all, a brochure does have my contact information on the back of it. We are seeking delivery build sites after this one in Rural Retreat where we can build under a roof, a canopy, farmer's market or whatever. We need volunteers to help build beds, we need volunteers to help deliver beds, and we're always looking for funding. Our startup tools to do 40 beds in 4 hours took $15,000. That's done. We've got those in the trailer, we're ready to go. So I'm trying to spread the word. People do not realize, when we were in training in June, there was about 150 people there. And we asked every single one of them, before you got involved with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, did you know kids don't have a bed? And 100% of the answer was, didn't have a clue. School systems, they talk about, these kids don't have shoes, or they don't have a coat, or they don't have enough to eat. They never talk about the kids don't have a bed. The care portal has supplied about 110 beds in the coverage area in the last calendar year. But those kids were either identified by the school system or DSS, because those kids were in danger of being put in foster care. Randy Page told me that Montgomery County has 98,000 residents and 20 kids in foster care. And Wythe County has, where are we at, 29,000? And there's about 50 kids in foster care. And I asked, what's the difference? And the difference is, those kids got beds. I would answer any questions. I kind of flew through that pretty quick, but
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hales?
Randy, just thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think, you know,
I've got a
reaching,
strong core team, it's about 20 of us on the core team. And we're on Facebook all the time, promoting the builds and looking for volunteers and funding.
thank you and your team. I mean, anytime that you can reach out to children, that's what we need to be doing. So,
It's unbelievable the difference in the school system, I'm sure sees this. The kid doesn't get a good night's sleep, they're not as good a student. It's not good physically, mentally, emotionally for a child to not get a good night's sleep. And I've never slept on a box that slept well. I can't imagine sleeping on the floor, even as a young man. We didn't have much when I was a kid, but I always had a dry bed and food on the table. But it's unbelievable, the number of kids that don't have a bed.
I seen Mr. Hill's presentation for town council and retreat, and the town of Retreat agreed to let the program use a building that they have. What he was talking about for, I guess, the build on the 29th, and just listening to the program and what they do provide. And, you know, I'm about as cold-hearted as it comes. But, you know, there's one thing that I do have a soft spot in my heart for, and that's children. And, you know, I've seen it. I know Miss Ayers has seen it. You know, Josh Carter's seen it. And, you know, we fund a lot of programs sitting up here. And I would like for us to consider, you know, giving them some type of funding, because as financially, you know, tight as this board can be, this county can be, I don't think anybody up here is going to argue that this is not a good program.
Absolutely not.
And so I reached out to the program and invited them and asked them if they would come do a presentation. And so that's why they're here tonight. And with that, I'll leave it in y'all's hands. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we definitely.
I think everybody knows how I feel about
Yeah.
children, so I'm all about helping the children.
Yeah, same here.
It's real hard to be cold-hearted when it comes to kids.
Absolutely.
well, you know, the majority of the kids I've seen in my career that are sleeping on the floor, you know, in a sleeping bag or what have you, you know, they didn't choose that.
No.
They're children. And, you know, they're a product of the environment that they were brought into. And, you know, that's, like I said, I'm pretty cold-hearted most of the time, but this whole presentation, it really got to me. So, I mean, I don't know if y'all want to, you know, look at an amount or what y'all want to do, but, you know, I would like to be able to contribute something to the program.
Should put in a request for budget when we do the budget and just approve them like we do with the.
Well, I mean,
Gives them
I would, yeah, I mean, I would hope that they would put something in, you know, as we go into budget season, but, you know, we're looking at 4 months away. You know, me personally, I'd like to be able to do something now and then look at it, you know, during budget time, but that's my opinion.
I think,
We have budget committee next week, is that correct?
Yes.
You want to you want to refer this to budget committee to make a recommendation next week and then bring it to the board at the next
Yeah,
meeting?
and I apologize for springing that because on Mr. Baird, because I mean, you know, we've got line items of money and all that, but, you know, sometimes a good surprise is better than a planned out surprise, so.
That'd give me a chance to figure out which line you need to put that in.
Well, and I do apologize
That's no
because
problem.
I meant to reach out to Mr. Baird and say, hey, you know, I've invited these people, but they really, no offense, Mr. Hales, but last week when I was battling this flu, it wasn't real high on my memory. I was trying to figure out how much longer I had before I could have another dose of that Robitussin.
And it's been a few weeks when I've really struggled with this, and the people that are mentoring me in my program keep reminding me, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. This ain't going away. We can't fund this thing and be done with it in 2025 or 2026. The first bed was built in 2012 in Twin Falls, no, it was in Utah. And he's still building beds in his county. He started in 2012. There was only 8 or 9 chapters up to 2018. Mike Rowe did a podcast called Paying It Forward. And they jumped that summer from 9 chapters to 160. And today there's over 400. My contact information's on there. We're all over Facebook on a regular basis. I'd love to see some of you at the building on the 29th of March. It is down the road just a bit. But I need 80 to 100 people there, and we'll crank out 40 beds in about 4 hours.
Did you get one of these?
Yes.
I think everybody did.
hey, Mr. Brown, before Randy leaves, I know he talked about he got a spot in Rural Retreat to build. And I think you kind of alluded to that you were looking for spots for the next build.
Yes.
Do we have any buildings that would be available or sites that they could use?
Open air sites could be Ager Park Shelter. It's probably not as big as the Rural Retreat shelter down there, but the Ager Park Shelter. Buildings I'll have to think about. As he was talking, I was trying to come up with the idea, and I'm not coming up with anything right off my head off of it.
What's the I call it a hut out at Speedwell landfill? Is it full of stuff? Is that a
Landon's got a lot of equipment and stuff in it, but yeah.
I was doing the same thing, but every building that I was thinking about that the county owns is packed full of stuff.
Yeah, the picnic shelters at Roll Tree Lake would be the biggest areas, but still not even, probably still not the best in the process, and not a whole lot of electrical connections and stuff there.
And we do have, in that
Generators.
$15,000 for the tools, we do have generators. We can set up out here in the parking lot, build beds and not plug into the building. Prefer to use the cords, just the generators, another maintenance item for us to take care of. The big thing, 8 months out of the year or 9 is having a roof, because we've got raw wood, we've got 80 people, we've got power tools running. The building that we're using in Rural Retreat is the old service bay for Randy's Auto Parts. It is a garage building with doors on both ends, lots of outlets. It's gonna be a great build site for us.
Wonder, is there anything at the old Scott Memorial School that would be?
It's worth looking at and see.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Could we reach out to the school board to see
I mean,
what they may have?
with the future of the majority of that building, I don't think it matters if they get a little sawdust on the floor.
And we'll clean up the floor, it's the rafters we're gonna have a little trouble with. And we do, I mean, when you cut up that much lumber, you're gonna make some sawdust. We do clean up, but we don't get on the ladder or the scaffold to clean the rafters.
Mr. Baird, would we be able to reach out to, does the Blue Ridge Bobcats have a public relations that might be interested in doing so? Because I know we got a barn out there,
Yeah, we got the barn.
That's a very good idea.
and I know they do all kinds of stuff. I just don't know what they would do.
That's an excellent suggestion. That's a lot of room in there.
Will dirt floor be okay?
It's
Yeah.
all gravel, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a gravel floor.
Sawdust hides better than gravel.
I had a man offer us a barn, an open front barn to build in. When I went and looked, the floor was about like that. I'm like, I can't have 80 people working on a wood floor or a wood floor. But if it's flat, yeah, we can work on a dirt floor.
Do you have any local companies that donate bedding or mattresses or,
At
Or
this,
how-
at this point, sorry to cut you off, at this point, I went with the New River Valley chapter to Mooresville, North Carolina last May, and we built 1,023 beds in 10 hours. New River Valley chapter gave me, as soon as I made president, they gave me 50 beds, and their 63 mattresses. They got 63 beds, they give me 50 of them. The Roanoke chapter gave me their 50. So we ended up with actually a total of 117 free mattresses. We haven't had to buy a mattress yet.
okay,
And the beds, we've built 16 beds. We did 2 core team builds, trying out the tools, learning the process hands-on. We haven't had a big build. This will be our first one. We have not purchased any pillows or any bedding. We actually have more bedding right now than we have beds. We have more mattresses than we have beds. Sadly, when I look at the lumber quotes from Lowe's and Sleep in Heavenly Peace have been very close since 2018. It actually costs more to furnish mattresses than lumber to build the beds. So we are working on that, trying to make the connections, getting the donations. The bedding that we deliver all has to be new. We use new lumber. We assemble the beds on site. We make them at our builds, but we store them broke down. Easier to handle, cheaper to store. And we delivered some beds here in town. A bunk bed, went up 3 flights of stairs from the apartment buildings. I was glad that bed was not assembled.
right.
But when we get done, it's made, it's ready for the kid to sleep in. So far, all that's been donated. But it will get to the point where we'll have to buy mattresses. And 40 mattresses run a little over $3,000. And the reason those mattresses were donated, when they order mattresses through the organization, they are vacuum sealed in a bag, rolled up and shrink wrapped, and they're in a box like this. The mattresses that we got donated to us, flat, floppy, and that, I'm okay with that. When they asked me if I wanted those like that, I'm like, I have no money, I have no tools, I have no beds. Yes, I'll take those mattresses. We can handle it, it's been fun.
You were saying, I'm sorry, Randy,
Huh?
you were saying 40 mattresses is $3,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We get mattresses for $70 a piece, and then we have to go either pay somebody to haul them or we go get them. We went and picked up those 117 mattresses in the factory in Charlotte. We picked up a Penske truck. We had $250. Go and get in the truck, go and get them. So we have been invited, if we make the cut, we've been invited to go this May to Charlotte. Lowe's is having a build. We're gonna build beds for 24 hours. The target is 5,000 beds. That will be insane. But we should get some beds and mattresses out of that, so. But the need is, the care portal did 110 beds. We anticipate doing 3 times that many. Because you don't have to be identified by DSS or the school system. You can go on our website, click on the button, apply for a bed, 6 questions. We call you, we bring you a bed. So there'll be more beds. There's a big margin between where a kid doesn't have a bed and when DSS and the school system knows it. And that's the 3 times what the care portal's been doing. It has been, I think, Brandy said, the biggest single obligation of the care portal. The first request they got when they opened it, and the biggest request they get is kids' beds. And for them to go buy them is a lot more than $250.
All right, well, thank you, sir. And-
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
We'll,
Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll look at it, Budget Committee, and Mr. Bear be in touch with you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you having blue hats and not pink hats. It took me 30 minutes to figure out who the guy was sitting back here.
He didn't like the pink when I bought it. Because I did buy him a pink.
All right, Next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. We've all received that in our board package. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Terry. Any questions on the consent calendar? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. Next, we have the Wythe County Planning Commission bylaws. Mr. Bear.
Yeah, Ms. Shelton's worked with the planning commission just to update their bylaws primarily. You'll see on page 108 of your package, just updating some ordinances to the correct ordinance numbers and amendments. I would recommend you all approve the Wythe County Planning Commission bylaws.
All right, entertain a motion to approve the Wythe County Planning Commission bylaws.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Burnett. Do I have a second? Have a second by Mr. Morgan. Is there any questions or discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item is we've got a county website recommendation. I believe we have Ms. Williams to. And I don't get excited about much, but I'm excited about this because this is a long time coming.
I'm gonna hold this because I know how bad the sound is on the video. I'm very excited about this too. I don't think it's any secret that our website leaves quite a bit to be desired. From what we can tell, the current website was built somewhere around 2012. It was given a facelift, I believe, when you, Chair Bott, and Mrs. Lawson came onto the board. I think that was something that both of you saw as a deficit. So it was given a brief, very, very light update then, but it was mostly cosmetic. So when I came on board in July, that was one of the things that in my interview with Mr. Bear and Mr. Hankins, it was, can you do websites? I in fact can. So I've spent around the past 2 months doing every government website demo known to man, and I think I've come up with a solution. In your packet, there is a memo and a proposal from Civic Plus. They're actually doing our Unicode codification project as well, so we are already working with them as a vendor. Not going to go point by point, but other than the fact that our website doesn't work that well, is old, and is a little ugly, we're also coming against some ADA compliance guidelines. We don't have to be compliant with our population until 2027. And what that generally means is that if you use a screen reader, if you need to make the website bigger, if it needs to be mobile responsive, if it needs to be read out loud, translation's not so much an issue for our population, but those are all features that we are going to be by law required to offer. And this website will just do it for us, which is really important. And it'll make it so anything we're posting will automatically be compliant. We won't be allowed to press publish without it being legally compliant. Our neighbors in Grayson County are in the implementation process with Civic Plus right now. It is expensive, but I think it's our front window into the county. If people are looking to relocate here, if they want the official word on what ordinances are, what's going on in these meetings, or just, if we have an emergency or a disaster like Helene, it's going to give us more flexibility and more room to get the effective information out there without having to over-rely on social media, which is important, but it's not reaching everybody by any means. And that's probably the biggest challenge of my job is, I can get on the TV cameras, I can get on the radio, I can post to Facebook, but I can't be everywhere. And we have a big deficit in our website, so I think it's an important upgrade for us to make. So instead of going point by point, do you all have any questions for me about the proposal?
She said it's expensive, but it's within budget, and staff's recommendation is proceed.
Do we need to take any action? I mean, we budgeted.
You budgeted for it. You don't have to, but if you all want to go ahead and authorize her to proceed with Civic Plus, you may do so. If not, she's going to proceed.
All right. I have a motion by Mr. Smith, second by, was that Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir.
Is there any questions or discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved, and thank you, Ms. Williams.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Deputy County Administrator, Mr. Hankins, is apparently battling what I had last week. So we'll move on to Mr. Bear.
Three items here. First is for Austinville Sewer Improvements Phase 2. Would request that you all approve an amendment to the Austinville Sewer System Improvement. The dollar figure is actually the same. It was nothing more than the schedule of values that the engineer gave us did not total the amount of the total contract, which matched their bid price. So I would just request you all approve amendment number 1.
All right, entertain a motion to approve amendment number 1 to the Austinville Sewer Improvement Contract. I have a motion by Mr. Morgan, a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion on that? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So approved.
Next item I've got is a letter of support. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, Jimmy Moss from the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission is here and can give you all a little bit of an overview of the projects they've been working on and what they're trying to do.
Well, I have asked for your support for another round of funding from Virginia Housing. It's a Regional Housing Unit Development Grant application. We use those funds to continue our efforts in the region to develop housing units. In our last round of funding, we were able to develop units in all the counties within our region that the planning district serves. Got units going on not far from this office here. What we do is we take those funds and we put them into a program that was developed by the PDC. And we have a Housing Unit Development Trust Fund. That trust fund provides zero interest loans for developers and builders looking to build new speculative houses in our area. And we also have a arm of that program that provides, that supplements the build of rental units. So provides a dollar amount as a grant that would help make those units economically feasible in our area for the folks we're looking to have in the workforce. So that is your population at the 80% to 150% AMI. So far to date, throughout the region, we've done a little over 100 houses. The initial amount of funding from Virginia Housing, we did 61 houses with their funds. And where we developed it, we're rolled into that trust fund. Those funds, as they're repaid, continue to roll over to let us keep partnering with potential builders and developers and move their projects forward. This would be $1.5 million grant application. I'd like to give you $150 million. Hopefully all that is a continuation of this effort. We'll be coming back to you on some other efforts because we're working with some builders and developers here in the county that's looking to do workforce housing. So that's what I have here today. If you have any questions, be happy to try to answer them for you.
I'll just comment that it's been a very successful program from Mount Rogers PDC. They have, people have been very surprised at how they took the money and how quickly they turned it around and are getting houses built. And as we all know, workforce housing is a critical thing for us. So I feel like y'all would support this, but it gave a good opportunity for Mr. Moss to come and just give a little bit of overview of what they're doing.
And, we're in a position here today that, any area, most areas never see. You've got some of the lowest unemployment rates across the region that has been seen in decades. So you've also got an expanding job force that's coming up. And if you're going to be able to continue that expansion of your workforce, it has to come from outside the area. If you've got an unemployment rate of 3% and below, you're looking outside the area to come in. And so everyone that we bring into the area will have to have housing, and we'll have to, to be able to support that growth in our businesses. And that's what this is all about.
Mr. Barrett, do we need to?
I would just request authorization to execute the letter.
All right, entertain motion to authorize Mr. Bear to execute the letter of support.
So move.
I have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any more questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Moss.
Thank you so
Thanks, sir.
much.
Sorry, sir. Back to me, isn't it? One more item on there. Request authorized to enter into agreement with ZMM to provide a preliminary architectural report for a new animal shelter. The fee proposed is $18,000, and a copy of that proposal for them looking at our site out at Stafford Umbarger Drive.
All right, entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Bear to enter into the agreement with ZMN.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question first,
Yeah,
please, sir? What is the deal with Wythe and their cat shelter and their dog shelter combined, Mr. Bear? Do you know?
The what I understand and I've been advised is that some members of the town council have expressed interest of if we are building a new shelter, if they wanted to join us and provide funding towards that shelter in order to make adequate space or maybe larger space for cats or things like that, that we would enter an agreement with them. I told them right now we're under preliminary architectural report. We are just looking at this, but would see if the board were interested, if they wanted to provide funding towards something additional or in the process, we could certainly look at that.
Right, and here's my question. In their work session, they, Ms. Pattison and Mayor Taylor were very quick to point out that this falls completely on the county. But the way I understand it, the cat requirement would fall back to the town because they've got a code section for cats where the county don't. Is that correct?
If they are regulating and controlling cats, it would be it would yes be their responsibility for what they're regulating and controlling. We do have a responsibility for meeting companion animals and having housing for companion animals.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
all right, I'll entertain a motion.
What actually is this gonna do? Are they gonna build it?
No. This is just for them to look at the site that we've looked at out there to determine the feasibility of this site, meeting with our animal control officers and taking information from around the area of what would be a size building to build to house the animals we got and what is a estimated cost of doing that. So it's sort of like a preliminary engineering report of what would it cost to run a water line from here to Stony Fork. It would look at it and say, this is the factors that go into it. So this would just be the preliminary report to come back, and then we would know what we're looking at to decide how we wish to proceed.
So this would have nothing to do with, the report would be no different whether we were having dogs or dogs and cats. It's the
Correct.
same, I mean, size of the building and all that. This has nothing to do with that.
We would be, what we have recommended in talking to them is that we look at, dog shelter, cat shelter sizing for what we would need to do to hold companion animals per code requirements.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse here then, because we need to work some things out with the town. Because what I saw in that meeting, they're not, we don't even need to worry about putting any cats in there as far as I'm concerned right now, because it doesn't seem to me they're wanting to cooperate very well.
Understand. What we are looking at is what we would need to have in order to meet all the code requirements for what we need to hold.
For the county,
For the county, yes.
not the town, right?
Yes. So, now, currently we operate the dog shelter that, dogs that the town picks up comes into our dog shelter. We do not pick up any cats. We do not have any ordinances regulating cats. They have a cat shelter. I think what Ms. Pattison is probably referencing is the code section says that the county shall operate animal shelters to take care of those issues.
Thank you.
You know, that is what we are looking at.
All right, is there any more questions on that? All right, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the county administrator enter into the agreement with ZMN to prepare the preliminary architectural report for the new animal shelter.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any more questions or discussion on that? All right, here and now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else, Mr. Bear?
No, sir.
Mr. Farthing, County Attorney, you have anything, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I would request item be added to a closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel regarding a potential claim against the county, and would like to invite Ms. Kim Ayers to join us for that discussion.
Under A7?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Move into board member time. Mr. Burnett, I'll start with you.
I actually have nothing at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Mrs. Lawson?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Cook?
Have nothing at this time.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say thank you to VDOT for taking care of the flooding over on Lots Gap and 94 during this last rainstorm that we had. And then I'll send an email out about some of the ditch lines that we've identified there at that time. Especially the residents on Lots Gap, they were pleased to get the water out of their yard. So I appreciate that. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, I got a couple things. Over in Speedwell, sign at the intersection of Old Bank Road and St. Peter's Road. Looks like somebody's hit it. So they're not laying down. Also getting reports about the Dry Road and St. Peter's Road, pavements coming apart, potholes, and I know they got all kinds of these needs to be fixed. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Going back to that town meeting on February the 18th, in their work session, there was some discussion from the council members in there that they don't seem to be very agreeable to our proposal and what we voted on and agreed to do as far as funding the fire and rescue commitment back to the town. I thought what we voted on was they were fine with that, but apparently not. They referenced getting 2 new board members may particularly change our stances on the way we want to do business, which I took great offense to that. And at this point, I'm going to make a motion that we pull out that $200,000 that we've offered for the next 2 years. We rescind that offer till they come to the table with the terms that they're looking for us to make a final vote on. So I'm going to make a motion, we currently rescind the contract that's out there till they can decide what they want. And at least put something back in front of us that we can decide yes or no on.
Mr. Mayor, just a clarification, what we voted on would be $200,000 for the next 2 years, correct?
Yes, it was.
So what they're saying is they'll accept the first 200 and then we would pay half of a fire truck. We didn't discuss it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video, reference about it. I don't know. My understanding was 200,000 for year 6 and then renegotiate year 7 in the process.
You know, they're saying we would pay half of a fire.
But that's not what we took action on. What we took action on was 200,000, which the current agreement's 100,000. So we're giving them 100% increase.
Correct.
But we voted for 200,000 for the next 2 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if they got back and said they'd only accept for 1 year?
I had a telephone call from Mr. Moore today. I returned the phone call to Mr. Moore, and he was in a meeting, and I have not spoken to Mr. Moore, so I have not received any information back from town other than what you all have indicated from the meeting.
All right, well, we've got a excuse me, we've got a motion on the floor for Mr. Terry that we need to address.
I'll second that
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Smith to rescind the $200,000. I guess wasn't offered, but
It was an amendment to the agreement. is what it
amendment to
was.
the agreement, so. All right, is there any questions or discussion on the motion? Right, here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 No.
So approved. Anything else, Mr. Terry?
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. Barry, the only thing I've got, and I can't remember the numerics, I'm sure you'll know. I got a call from people that live on Whippoorwill Road, and the house that I guess the front yard collapsed. Apparently the ditch lines are filled, and there's all kinds of mud and stuff coming out on the roadway. Could you talk to VDOT about ditching that?
Yes, sir.
Or cleaning that up? I'm not sure. Not sure. I haven't been up there since the flood, and I'm not sure if the property owners made any progress, but apparently every time it rains, it's pretty bad right through there. So, and that's all I've got. Next item on the agenda is a closed session for under Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A5, discussion of prospective industry project gradient. 2.2-3711A1, discussion of personnel for county administration. 2.2-3711A3, acquisition or disposition of real property, Speedwell District. And 2.2-3711A7, consultation with legal counsel.
Regarding a potential claim.
That's it, Mr. Farley. All right, entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. To have a second? Have a second by Mr. Morgan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're now in closed session. All right, entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry to have a second. Have a second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're now back in open session on the record. Mr. Terry, if you'll read the certification.
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore be resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by the Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening this closed meeting were heard, discussed, and are considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. And I'll make that a motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Terry to have a second. Have a second by Mr. Morgan. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Mr. Barry, anything else to come before the board?
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, we do need to start talking about work sessions for the
Budget.
zoning ordinance. We do have our middle of March, we do have our budget work sessions coming up, but don't know how you want to do that, if you want us to look at going to recess after the next meeting or a time frame of doing that.
I'd say let us look at our calendars and come up with something after the next meeting. And can you have Ms. Collins send out the budget calendar for the budget
They're
presentation
finalizing
dates?
it, but yes, I will do so. I was looking at it yesterday.
I can't
But it's
remember.
pretty much, all the appointments are gonna be Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday should be civic groups and school board right now. That's what I'm looking
I couldn't remember the dates, I'm
Oh,
sure.
it's
St. Patrick's Day.
It was St. Patty's.
17th, 18th, and 19th. We'll send you a draft.
Mr. Farthing, you have anything?
I discovered that Mary Taylor passed away on the 22nd.
Oh,
Spoke with County Vice
yeah.
President.
Yeah.
Mary Kegley.
Super smart lady.
I hadn't heard
Well,
anything about
I
that.
hadn't either.
Lives in the Grove Times. She's 95 years old.
Yeah,
Wealth of
yeah.
historical
Yeah,
information for Wythe
knowledge, yeah.
County.
Probably knew,
I just saw it.
yeah, she probably knew the circuit court files better than anybody.
I bet you're right.
So, all right, does anybody else have anything to come before the board? All right, hearing none, we'll be adjourned.